You held the door open for her and something slipped out. Not gratitude, not love, a shadow, tall, formless, already walking ahead of you. You smiled. She didn't see. You listened. She forgot. You apologized and her spine grew straighter. You bent your back and she stepped on it like it was always meant to be a stair. There is a sickness that mimics virtue, a hunger that smells like sweetness, and you feed it. Every silence you offer becomes her applause. Every kindness becomes a coin she drops into the well of herself, never to be seen again. She does not drink from you. She drains you and calls it affection. And still, you call it patience. Still, you call it love. You've never noticed the swelling in her eyes after your humility, not tears. No, inflation. If this whisper already knows, you let it echo. Like the video. Leave your shadow in the comments. Subscribe and stay near the silence. It always begins with a smile. Not hers, yours. A small concession to the social machine. A polite signal that you mean no harm. That you are soft. That you can be approached without consequence. But you never questioned why it feels like swallowing gravel when you do it. You never noticed how often you wear it when she enters the room. How involuntary it has become. Like the twitch of a wounded animal trying not to provoke the predator. You imagine it makes you human. She sees it as a leash already fastened around your neck. You held the door open and she walked through you. At first, it was nothing amiss, thank you. A glance that never returned. A comment that cut deeper than necessary. But you excused it, didn't you? You told yourself she was tired, distracted, misunderstood. You patched the wound and offered more attention, more patience, more space for her moods to roam freely while yours curled up quietly in the corner. You thought love meant softness. You didn't realize softness could rot. Every gesture you offered was met not with tenderness, but absorption. You extended warmth. She absorbed it like a black cloth over a flame. You dimmed. She glowed. You thought it meant she loved you. What you missed, what you refused to name, was the transaction written in invisible ink, your dignity, exchanged for her mood stability. She never asked you to sacrifice yourself, but she noticed when you did. And she did not stop you. There's a smile some women give when they know you'll never leave, when they realize your kindness is no longer a gift, but a cage you built for yourself and ask them to decorate. It's the smile that shrinks you. It praises you for being understanding, then uses your understanding to make sure you understand less. Less of her games, less of her indifference, less of yourself. You told her about your childhood, she yawned. You cried once in front of her, she blinked. You bought her favorite coffee on a bad day, she scrolled. And still, you offered more, because you are addicted to the illusion that your patience will change her. You believe, against all evidence, that if you are soft enough, still enough, good enough, she will awaken like a statue kissed by the right breath. But statues do not wake. They remain cold no matter how many offerings you lay at their feet. You're not kind because it's noble. You're kind because you're afraid. Afraid of abandonment. Afraid of conflict. Afraid of the silence that follows a confrontation. So you swallow yourself in doses, hoping she'll notice the sacrifice. But she's not watching your martyrdom. She's already moved on to someone who bleeds louder. Her ego is not a mirror, it is a mouth. You thought it was intimacy when she asked about your past and then flinched at your answers. You thought it was connection when she borrowed your time, your energy, your sympathy and offered none in return. You mistook proximity for care. But parasites live close to the heart, too. And the worst part, she doesn't even know she's doing it. Or worse, she does. And still calls it love. Because your suffering makes her feel worthy. Because your silence makes her feel powerful. because your absence of resistance feels like worship. She wants a man who gives without edge, without condition, not because she respects generosity, but because it means she'll never be challenged. She doesn't want a partner, she wants a pedestal, and you were kind enough to become stone. When she lashes out, she expects softness. When she withdraws, she expects pursuit. When she lies, she expects understanding. And when she gets all three, softness, pursuit, understanding, she no longer sees you. She sees herself, adored, inflated, eternal. You let her perform cruelty without consequence. That is the food of narcissism. And you fed her every time you forgave her with a smile. Not a strong smile, not defiance, but that limp, grateful expression that says, hurt me. Just don't leave me. That's not love. That's rot. She has never thanked you for the parts of yourself you erased to keep her comfortable. She has never cried over your confusion or trembled at the weight of your silent endurance. Why would she? You made it look easy. You made self-destruction look noble. You trained her to believe that your suffering was background music to her performance. And now you stand there, asking why she doesn't appreciate you. She doesn't see you because you trained her not to. The more kind you became, the less real you appeared. She no longer recognizes your boundaries because you handed them to her like a bouquet and asked her to trample them with grace. You wanted love to come from sacrifice because that's what they taught you. But what grows from that soil is not love, it's entitlement. You bowed, she forgot you had a spine. And here's the cruelty of the game: the more invisible you become in your attempts to be good, the more she looks for someone less kind, more chaotic, more cruel, someone whose absence has weight, whose disapproval has sharpness, someone whose smile is not an apology, but a warning. You will call him toxic. She will call him magnetic. And you will watch her chase the man who never even tried to be gentle. Not because he is better, but because he still exists. While you, in your gentle, bleeding silence, disappeared. You were never building love. You were building a stage for her to feel like a queen. And every act of kindness was another brick. You thought love would come when you earned it. She thought love had arrived when she realized she never had to. If you're still smiling, ask yourself this: would she smile if you vanished? Or would she only notice the silence not for what it means, but for how it echoes her voice less clearly? You think you are being seen. You think her eyes reflect you. But you are standing in front of a mirror that does not give back light. You mistake attention for recognition. But what you feel is not presence, it is surveillance. She is not watching you to understand. She is watching you to assess, to measure, to calculate the limits of your obedience. She studies you like a chessboard, every compliment, every touch, every gaze, all tools, all methods of psychological accounting. You show her your fears, she maps them. You tell her your dreams, she files them under leverage. You think this is intimacy, it is inventory. She wants the version of you that fits her reflection. And if you don't fit, you are trimmed, softened, resized. Your rough edges filed down until your face mirrors hers in silence. She will never say this aloud, she doesn't need to. You adapt yourself before she even flinches. You dilute your thoughts before she needs to ask. She only has to narrow her eyes slightly, and your whole personality folds. You've mistaken survival for connection, but mirrors like hers don't reflect, they consume. They absorb light, absorb warmth, absorb identity until all that remains is her own shape, uninterrupted by yours. And you thought it was compatibility. She doesn't fall in love with you. She falls in love with the version of herself she sees when you are silent, the way she glows when you compliment her, the way her story becomes central in every conversation, The way your empathy makes her feel omnipotent. Your kindness is not a trait, it's a filter she uses to see herself in higher resolution. That is all. She is not moved by your pain. She is moved by her ability to cause it without consequence. That power is addictive, not love power. And you handed it to her by being understanding, by being patient, by being good. You thought your generosity would show her your soul, but she never wanted your soul. She wanted your outline hollowed out, malleable, easy to decorate with her moods. You used to speak, now you edit. You used to laugh. Now you check her face before you exhale. You used to feel hunger. Now you wait to see if she's full before feeding yourself. You've become the mirror. That's the irony. You, who wanted to be seen so badly, became the surface that only reflects her. She stands in front of you, admiring her image and your patience, your loyalty, your restraint, and calls it love. You call it loyalty, but you feel it in your bones. It's erasure every time you express yourself. Her gaze turns colder. She doesn't argue, not always. Often she simply shifts the tone, withdraws slightly, smiles in a way that makes you wonder if you've ruined something, and so you retreat. You rewrite your truth in softer language. You fold your needs into jokes. You wrap your anger in diplomacy. You stop saying what you mean because the cost is too high. And she doesn't even have to punish you anymore. You punish yourself before she has the chance. You are her ideal partner, now empty of resistance, full of attention. Not because she loves you, but because you never ask her to become anything other than adored. She wants your devotion, not your soul. She wants your loyalty, not your depth. Your confusion is comforting to her. Your doubt affirms her role as the stable one, the centered one, the one you orbit. And what happens when you cry? She tilts her head. Not in sorrow, but in curiosity. Because your emotions are no longer human. They are data. They help her sharpen the tool set. They teach her where your spine bends and where it breaks. You didn't notice how your apologies became currency, how your every disagreement ends with you explaining, again, how much you love her, how every time you hurt, she seems to stand taller. She has become the architect of your reality, and you are the mirror she uses to admire her architecture. You imagine this is rare, but it's not. There are many who live like this not in romance, but in reflection. Their entire existence is shaped by the gaze of another. What they wear, what they say, what they believe, all filtered through the lens of someone else's approval. You think love is surrender, but Schopenhauer knew love, when corrupted, is a mask worn by domination. She never had to raise her voice. You silenced yourself. You believe she's strong because she seems unaffected. But unaffected is not strength, it is absence. The absence of empathy, the absence of guilt, the absence of mutuality. Her calm is not wisdom. It is apathy disguised as grace. And your devotion is not noble. It is fear sharpened into ritual. You are afraid to lose her, not because she brings you joy, but because you've built your identity around being accepted by someone who withholds affection as if it were a game. She doles out closeness like a currency, a kiss here, a compliment there, just enough to keep the illusion warm. But when you step back, truly step back, you realize she's not looking at you. She's looking through you, as if you are a window, not a man. You used to imagine a future together. Now you imagine surviving the next conversation. You weigh every word like it's a blade. You rehearse silence like it's a prayer. You've become good at disappearing. Too good. Now even you don't know where you went. And when you finally speak, when the pain bubbles up in a whisper, when your voice shakes and your hands go cold, she tilts her head again. Not to listen, but to judge, to categorize, to rank your breakdown. Because in her world, You are only as valuable as your performance. She does not see your interior. She sees your utility, and that mirror that consumes light, you built it. You polished it with compliments. You framed it with sacrifice. You cleaned its surface with your dignity. And now you stand before it dim, voiceless, erased, and still you call it love. She claps when you suffer not with hands, but with silence, with that careful pause after your confession, the one where you wait for warmth and receive nothing but stillness, with the calm breath she takes while you fall apart, with the way she tilts her head like she's watching a performance that doesn't quite deserve a standing ovation. She claps by, withholding her applause as absence, and you, trained by the theater of disappointment, keep performing anyway. You bleed and she blinks. You ache and she asks if you're tired. You confess a fear and she uses it as a reference next week, not to reassure you, but to remind you where the wound lives. Her affection is a stage. Your pain is her spotlight. And the more you suffer without leaving, the more she believes she owns you. You mistake her presence for care, but she's not there to comfort you. She's there to record, to take note of which gestures make you flinch, which silences make you beg, which facial expression causes you to over-explain your very breath. You call it a relationship, but to her, it is a rehearsed tragedy, one in which she always plays the misunderstood heroine, and you play the disposable martyr. And you wonder why you feel invisible. It is because you are no longer seen as a person. You are a role, a mirror, a monologue receiver, a sadness sponge. Her concern comes only when you detach. That's when the panic appears, not because she loves you, but because you are the screen that plays her favorite movie, the one where she's always right. She cannot afford for you to walk off stage. Not yet. Not before the final scene. So she weaves you back in, a soft touch, a rare compliment, a memory of laughter from the early days carefully dropped like a breadcrumb. You take it, starved as you are, and call it reconciliation. But it is not reconciliation. It is reset. The retightening of the leash after you pulled slightly. She is not forgiving. She is recalibrating. She doesn't want your joy. Joy is independent. She wants your ache. Your ache is dependent. Your ache keeps you malleable, soft, caged. Your ache means you still believe she can be reached, understood, redeemed. That's the trick. Parasites don't kill. They sustain just enough to keep you crawling. And you give standing ovations for crumbs. You weep with gratitude when she remembers your favorite song, forgetting she forgot your name in the way she said it last night. You tell your friends she's just going through something, even though her something has become your entire atmosphere. You measure her moods like a sailor measures storms, but the ship was never hers. You just let her steer. And in that steering, she has learned the craft of hollow power, the kind that comes not from creation, but extraction. She doesn't build, she consumes. Not just your time, not just your energy, but your essence, the subtle vibration of being alive in a room, of being certain in your own breath. She replaces that with anticipation. You wait for her approval like an addict, and she smiles each time you ask for less. That smile, it lives in your bloodstream now. You can feel it when you hesitate before speaking, when you rewrite your text messages 3 times, when you ask for permission to express confusion. That smile trained you, and you clapped for it. Not because it earned praise, but because silence from her was worse. This is the true applause of the parasite when you cheer for your own reduction, when you smile back through gritted teeth, just to keep the peace, when you accept the blame for the tension she orchestrated, when you call her emotional weather normal, because the alternative naming it would mean facing the fact that you built your sanctuary in someone else's mouth. and now you can't breathe without their sentence. And what would happen if you stopped? What would happen if you pulled the curtain, not dramatically, not in rage, just stillness, no apology, no performance, no desperate clarification? What would she see? Not you. She's never seen you. She would see a blank stage, no echo, no monologue target, no script to bounce her justifications against, only the shape of her own emptiness where you used to stand, holding up the illusion. And that is the only truth that frightens her. Not your anger, not your hurt, but your absence. Because if you vanish, who will clap? Who will cry when she cries? Who will hold the contradictions of her cruelty with a smile? Who will make her feel good for being terrible? You did. You became the mirror and the witness and the standing ovation. You gave her moral cover by enduring. You became her proof that she must be good, because how else could someone so kind love her for so long? She cannot question herself while you remain. You are her excuse. You are her halo. You, the man who suffers politely, you are the fig leaf over her monstrousness. She never had to be kind, because you were kind enough for both of you. But kindness without self-respect is not virtue. It is masochism with a smile. And the tragedy is you knew. You always knew. You felt it in the quiet moments, in the way your chest tightened when she walked into the room, in the dreams where you were screaming and no sound came out, in the bone-deep fatigue that no sleep could heal, in the way you began to miss yourself, not the man you were with her, but the one you might have been without her. You began to imagine silence, not just external, but internal, a life without tiptoes, a life where your kindness meant something because it was rare, not endless. A life where your love wasn't food for someone else's inflation, but a fire you tended for your own warmth. But she sensed that too, and so she turned up the charm, the apology, the memory. She remembered your favorite joke. She touched your hand just right. She wept for herself, and you doubted yourself again. And she clapped, because applause doesn't always sound like clapping hands. Sometimes it sounds like a door you never closed. Sometimes it sounds like a heart still waiting for her to change. But change never comes, only cycles. The show never ends, only pauses, until you stop performing, until you leave the stage, and let the silence be her mirror. There is a chair in the middle of the stage now, empty, no spotlight, no audience, no script, just the faint scent of a man who once begged to be seen. She stands in the wings, confused, not sad, confused. Where is the man who bowed after every insult? Where is the echo that used to follow her every movement? There is only air now, and dust, and the absence of applause, and maybe the sound of your own footsteps, walking somewhere without mirrors, without her, without need, without noise. If this whisper stayed with you, let it echo once more. Like the video, leave your ghost in the comments. Subscribe and vanish with dignity.